Hey guys, this is Richard Davis, and I'm with Dr. Hollis, and this is The Hills Are Not Flat, where we map the terrain of recovery. As we talked about last week, it was mostly about the competence of a man and his masculine identity, and that's the undertone that I'm that we're taking with the show, um, mostly toward men, but men define themselves by what they can do, right? They're provider, they're protector, they're problem solver. Uh, they do all these things that a man is supposed to do. But in his career, mostly the man is the breadwinner. I mean, there's a lot of women that are breadwinners too nowadays. But in your career as a man and as a professional man, your handshake, your word, that's who you are. That is exactly who you are at your core. But what happens whenever a man finds himself listening to Christmas music right next to him and he can't stop but just listen to it just for a little while? Let's listen to it for a moment. All right, so that's comic relief now. But then the thing is that what happens whenever a man's handshake is word, it doesn't mean anything anymore. What happens whenever he stops being reliable, whenever he stops being that person you can lean on, the person you can trust? What happens whenever he can't even trust himself to stop? Well, and we're talking about alcoholism or drugs or any other thing. It could be gambling, and we have the full gamut at your disposal. But what happens is eventually the foundation cracks, and you know that's whenever a man really starts losing his identity because it's turned from you know someone who was always there and has always been a part of the family, the guy who showed up for all the events and did everything, came home on time, went to all the baseball games, coached all the baseball games, coached all the basketball, games, coached the soccer game, and all of a sudden, he's kind of cracking. He's not doing the same thing that he did at work, and then
But what
the
do you
problem.
think, not to interrupt you, but a quick highlight here. What do you think is that pivotal moment where it's the change and like, I guess, in the identity and like the masking and sort of like the hiding it, where you sort of like lose, I don't know, trust in yourself? Is that how you would define that?
I think what it is. All right. So the men that we're talking about for the most part, that we've been trying to talk about for the last week, they're highly functioning men, right? They're high performers. These are your industry elite, right? These guys can operate on 70%, and their 70% is more than anybody else's 200%, right?
Mhm.
So what happens is that they get used to operating that way. They are the head of the head. They are the creme de creme. They are the providers. They are everything to everybody all the time. And people give them grace even when they slip with a little bit of drinking, right? Because they operate at such a high level. But eventually, what happens is that, this person that was operating at 70% all of a sudden has to operate at 80, 90, and 100, but eventually his 100% is not even enough. And people that gave him a pass before because he was so highly functioning, they can't ignore it anymore, right? You can't ignore the performance slips. The guy that used to deliver is not the guy that delivers anymore. He used to be able to go and play golf at 12 o'clock anytime he wanted to, Wednesday through Friday, take the staff out or whoever or a client out, and everyone would let him go because he was the top salesman, right? But then all of a sudden he starts slipping up on the golf course, right? And he makes an ass of himself in front of the client. client gets back to the the business, and the boss wants to know, hey man, what's going on? Also at home, right? So the guy, and I've been here before, the coach, the baseball coach, the soccer coach, the basketball coach, you've been everything to everybody and you promised everybody everything, but all of a sudden the man that used to come home and do all those things, he starts slipping. He starts slipping. He starts forgetting things. He starts forgetting about the baseball practice. He forgets about the games. He forgets about where he's supposed to be, and he just says, "I forgot." And
But that's a real thing, like in the chronic alcoholism, like part is biological in basis, like the prefrontal cortex, which is, the part of the brain that when you're under like chronic stress, shame, or repeated self-betrayal in a sense, it's responsible for things like judgment, impulse control, long-term thinking, self-regulation, and the ability to say, I know what matters most, even when I'm uncomfortable. So it makes sense that that's shrinking when there's like some chronic alcoholism or drinking or substance use going on. And so it's not operating at the standard of someone who doesn't have that going on. So it's that executive functioning that sort of like declines in a sense.
well, yeah, and so what happens is that so now this guy, he's been highly functioning all his life. He's been able to do a lot with a little. He's suave, a rico suave de probada. He's the guy who always gets things done. He's been everything to everybody. Everyone knows that whenever he comes around, that things get done, and then it just starts slipping. It starts slipping a little bit more and more. And you know, what happens then is that the excuses start, right? That's where the excuses start. It's where my joke is, you lose your same aunt like three times, right? For I mean, like, I mean, it really happens. I mean, like, you lose like your family, and it's not funny, but it is funny. I mean, like,
Just to
you,
hear you say that.
I know you just start losing family members one by one, and you have all these excuses, of why, uh, you know, I can't do it now. I'm going through this, that, family stuff, my son, whatever, and it's all lies. And people give you a pass for a while, and they'll let you have that. They'll let you have it. But there's a point in time, man, where you can't lie no more. I mean, you just can't lie anymore. And what happens is that you're already shameful with the lies you're telling. You've already set your own trap, right? And
Mhm.
you know it's only a matter of time before everyone knows, but you keep going down the trail. You keep going down it. And what happens eventually is that you get caught. And you get caught in your own lies again. And this can obviously I'm kind of pushing this toward, the workplace. But I mean, obviously it's in your social network too. Once people pick up on that, they don't let it go. There's a hypervigilance, like we've said before, on all accounts. Once people are hypervigilant and they're on to you, there's just like there's no way around it. And then that's the spiral. That's the spiral, and that's the emasculation. And it is your fault. It is the man's fault. He did do that. He put himself there. Uh, you know, and I'm not even going to defend that guy, tonight. You know, I really want to talk about more how it affects other people than defending the guy who lies about his drinking. So tell me more. Tell me about this guy. So this guy, he was everything once. You believed in him. He had all the answers. He did everything right. He's spiraled out of control. Now he's lying. He knows he's lying. You know he's lying. He's trying to save himself. You don't want to give him grace, and I'm not asking you to.
Mhm.
I'm just asking you to explain it how pertains to the family.
Well, I think, separate of like the wife, but the kids
And the
too, in a
employer also,
sense.
and the
It's
employer,
more of
yeah.
that unpredictable. And the what?
And the employer too, yeah. I mean, the full gamut, the employer, the family, the kids, the baseball team, the
Everybody.
whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The unpredictability trauma. Because it gets to a point to where the person that has the, alcohol problem or substance use problem, they're not able to be reliable, so it's unpredictable. And then how is dad going to come home? How is, my husband or my spouse going to come home? How is this employee going to come into work today? Can we trust that they're going to keep their words, to even be into work today, or, to take me to the baseball game, or, coach soccer or this and that. I think it's that it's so unpredictable. And it's like, how does the person learn how to cope or respond to that in terms, if you're thinking in the person that has the alcoholism or the substance use, like how do you respond to that, right?
Well, I don't know how you do, and this is kind of where I want to turn it over to, you know, the whole part of the podcast is not just about trying to explain why the guy does it. I mean, we know why we do it. The guys know why they do it. I mean, you're an addict, you're an alcoholic, you're acting like an alcoholic. I mean, it's not as, I mean, it's not really that difficult. I mean, you're going to lie, you're going to say no, you're going to deny, and you're going to make excuses, right? So, I mean, like, that's the MO of it. This is not just about the MO of everything that everybody knows. But hopefully we'll get to the point where where I want to get on the other side of it, how guys can get out of this, right?
Yeah.
But at this point in time, but this addiction, it attacks your confidence, right? It attacks a man's confidence. He was there. He all of a sudden isn't. He's slipping, breaking promises. He's shameful. He's lying about how and why he's doing it. People are giving him breaks until they can't. And then he hides his incompetence with just more drinking and he just spirals out even more. And I deserve to have my title back, right?
Mhm.
And but the problem is because of that narcissism. Man, I don't want to call it narcissism. Every woman wants to say that a man's narcissist, right? It's like the first thing. Every time that a man is an alcoholic or anything, they want to, oh, he's a narcissist, because he thinks he knows everything. The problem is, it's not that. It's just that whenever you were a man of industry and you had a title and you were moving and shaking things, it's really hard to admit that defeat. It's really hard to like go back and say, you always just want to say, hey, if I just have one more day, 2 more days, if I could just lie one more day, my aunt died again, my uncle died again, whatever.
Yeah.
I've got to go out of town because a friend of mine died. I mean, there's a lot of death in these things, which it sounds horrible, but it really is. You just want a chance to redeem yourself, and you think 2 more days, 3 more days, 4 more days, I'll redeem myself, and then I don't have to admit defeat. But you know, and these guys, me included, and a lot of other men that I know, and you guys know who you are. you you put it all the way to the end, yet you waited all the way to the end until there wasn't another excuse, right? There wasn't another excuse. And then what do you do then? Well, the vulnerability, it feels like public execution, doesn't it? It feels just like that. It feels like you're done, like somebody just nicks you, like you're canceled. And Dr. Hollis and I were talking about living in you know, some of these gated communities in Atlanta. How exactly people can cancel you. They can cancel culture pretty fast if they get kind of a little bit of a wisp of these sort of things. And I've seen that happen to a lot of friends of mine, but you just don't want to ask. And so what happens whenever you do that? So tell me, Dr. Hollis, when these guys find themselves at the bottom, at the end, emasculation, they don't have anywhere else to go, the shame, resilience, you know, where do they go then?
I mean, I think the core idea is definitely, we don't avoid it. We don't numb it. We have to try to understand and certainly respond to it differently. Sort of like what we talked about on the last few episodes is like the definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results and good and well. It's never going to be, it's not different until you do something different. And it doesn't even mean like an actual, I don't know, action. It can even just be an intention, a mindset change. But I think, trying to identify the response and understand it and then the way you want to respond to it, which instead of like, shaming yourself or I don't know, Ricky, I guess hating yourself,
And this is you. This is all you. So I mean, this is your field.
so I think from the terms of like a wife or, a mother, um, a family member, that if, it gets to the point where the woman has just had enough, like take a stand. I mean, obviously you have to set boundaries. Um, you know, Obviously safety first and foremost. I would always encourage the woman if it's the woman, or I mean, not to say it can't happen to the man too. So I don't mean to like specify in terms of that, but for the whoever it is in the situation, man, woman, child, boss, whoever, boundaries, I would tell if it was me, for instance, and it was my spouse, I would, try to give as much grace as you can. I mean, I know that's easier said than done sometimes, but you give as much grace because you love your husband, you love your family, you don't want it to, you know, go spiral down this way. But obviously, if you've got kids too, you have to look out for not just your safety, but their safety. So I would say boundaries, safety. If you had to tell the man to leave the house until he is, not a danger to himself, to you, or to others. I mean, you do what you have to do in the moment to survive. But what you want me to discuss is more like after that initial period.
No, here's the thing is that there's two sides to it all. And it's a shame that there is, right? Because this man, he loves his family. He really does deep inside. And his family loves him, and the kids love him. They want their dad.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to advocate for really uh, any one side any other than the other, but I mean there has to be a safety plan, right, in place whenever it comes.
Right.
And not every woman is okay with dad just going down to the basement and falling asleep, right? Sometimes, they don't want dad to be home. It's a very dynamic situation, and but the shame of it is, and from what I've seen, is the kids that are involved in the middle who just wanted basketball dad, they wanted Disney dad, they wanted baseball dad, they wanted the coach, right, to come home and to throw the ball with them, and mama wanted that guy to come home and maybe bitch about his job for a little bit, and then lay down with her and love her, and uh, you know but what happens in this chasm is that none of those things happen. You don't play ball, and you don't lay down, and yeah,
But the
you don't
hypervigilance associated with it's real because it's part of that fight or flight where it's like you're anxious because you don't know what version of
oh no, no,
spouse or
but
dad is coming home.
here's the thing, and I'll make a case. I might even make a case for the drunk. Okay, I'll make a case for the drunk if she didn't check his breath, right? If she didn't ask to check his breath, if she let it go, and she didn't count the bottles, and she wasn't looking in your eyes, and she just let it go and said, you know what? I think that I could stand this, stinking guy, like hanging out with me tonight, and I'll just let it go for the kids. But what's happened though at this point, she's already done this a hundred times, right? Maybe hundreds of times. She's already let the smell go. She's already had the guy in her bed that stank, right? And sweating. She's already had that, and it's enough. I guess what I was trying to get at with you is I don't want to just make this a show about, taking up for the guy who decided that he wanted to keep drinking. I think that there's also victims that are involved with this, right?
Of course. Yeah.
And you hope that the guy will get better. You hope that he'll be restored. But in the meantime, everyone's on high alert all the time. So, anyways,
And I
I
think it
just
looks different for every person, I think, depending on where, they're at mentally too. I mean, it could look like we need a trial separation while, the person cares for himself because until he can care for himself, he can't help them, right? So
want to go on to this. All right, so I'm gonna move on to why relapse feels like identity death for a guy. You promise yourself after all this, I'm not gonna stink anymore. I'm not gonna come home. I want the kids to feel good. I'm gonna make it on time for the baseball games. I'm gonna make it on time for the cheerleading competitions. I'm going to do everything to do the best that I can. And you promise yourself this time. But the difference is this time you didn't just promise them, you didn't just promise everyone else, you promised yourself.
yeah. How does that hit
And
differently?
well, it's a long shaft to have down, it's like and it's not digging for gold for sure. It's this long shaft all the way down to where like you passed by every excuse that you could, and you gave every one of them that you could, and you promised everything you could, and you said I was going to do this again and again and again, but then you get to the bottom of the shaft and like there's just you and this shovel, right? And I mean, you can just like keep digging, or you can like try to make this promise to yourself that, never again. I promise myself I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be in the bottom of this shaft. I don't have to dig any deeper. This is the last floor. But then what happens though is that once you start making that promise to yourself and you go back on that, it is a whole nother level of hell, right? Because then now all of a sudden, I mean, like it was easy to kind of maybe, lie to other people and say, yeah, I'll do this, or yeah, I'll do this. But once you lie to yourself and you continue to not perform for yourself, that's whenever it turns into I, I'm broken. I am broken and I can't be fixed. And that despair is one of the most horrible things that a man can ever really imagine to be in. Once you understand that not only can you not do this for your kids, not only can you not do this for your wife or your mom or your dad or your job, your professionalism, I mean, like, or your all the things that you went to school for, and you just once you decide that you couldn't even do it there, but then all of a sudden you're at the bottom of this shaft with this shovel in your hand and you're just digging it deeper.
So it's sort of like the theory of learned helplessness, which is or what can happen when someone's trying to change, trying to do better, trying to regain control, but then they fail enough times that their brain stops expecting the efforts to matter. So it's not
Well, no,
giving
no,
up
no,
because you
no.
don't care.
No, they tried. I'm just saying they
It's that
found
it leads to
themselves,
more pain if you fail again,
yes.
right?
And so, but once a man figures out that he is worthless, he will feed back into that. And I have a similar experience where, I used to, when I had this happen to me, where I imagined myself in this cabin, on top of a mountain in the woods. And in this cabin, I could do anything, right? I could be the loser or the nobody or the forgotten person that nobody cares about because I had already resolved and resigned myself that I was worthless and um, I didn't deserve anything else. I didn't deserve another chance. So once you have that resolve to resign, once you have given up hope in yourself, once you have told yourself never again another 100 times, and you continuously disappoint yourself, there is this point in time where you actually do resign. And for some people, it's death. Some people, it's suicide, right? Some people, they live in between those two worlds. They live between killing themselves slowly and not living, And but once you get there, and once you're there, it is a hard place to come back from. And the temptation is just to say, "This is who I am." Maybe I used to be somebody one day, before, but that's in the past, and now this is who I am, and I accept my reality, and I'm just going to give up because there's nothing left. You
What do you think
know.
helps to change that mindset or change that thought pattern or fix that thinking? Or do you think
Well,
there's something?
I can tell you, and I wasn't going to go into it all at once, but for me, it was just this moment where I just cried out to God, and I said, "God, I just do not know what to do, and I have no clue. But if you will restore me, I'll do anything. I'll do anything that you tell me. Like anything that you tell me to do, I'll do it. Just please restore me and help me do what I can't do." And for everyone, I think it might look a little bit different. It doesn't. One of my biggest points of contention with AA is that And everybody's now saying, oh, well, you don't have to believe in God. You can be like the Dalai Lama or whatever. And that's fine, man. It could be whoever you want it to be. It could be, a bottle of water. It's whatever you need. But I mean, for that to be true. But for me, it's always been God. And it's just being in that depth, right? Being in the bottom of that depth and not having anything left to hold on to, and no real resolve to even make it better, but just crying out, God, just if you can just give me something, just give me a crack hole, just give me something that I can hold on to just for a minute, just to get one foot at a time out of this chasm, out of this well, out of this hole that I've dug myself into. I'll do whatever you say. And you know, I would implore anyone, Gnostic people, that have found religion down there in the bottom of that well. And so I'm very sure that there's a few guys that might could write a review tonight about their agnostic ways and how they found God in the
Yeah.
depths of hell. But I think that's the first and foremost. But I mean, restoration takes a while. It really does take a while, and it's not about just getting sober. Okay, it's about becoming someone who doesn't need something. So I love AA. I'm a proponent of the 12 steps. It all has a place. God has a place. But what it's about, it's not about not drink. It's the absence of something that needs to make you feel like you're something that you're missing, right? So something that helps you find yourself again, become yourself again, you know. And what can you still do? Well, as you restore yourself and as you find sanity, through that, and hopefully through God, I believe that you can restore sanity, you can restore your own masculinity, and you can restore the things that you used to be good at. But it's to me, it's not about just not drinking. It's just about not needing it anymore. So
So it's not about fixing it. It's like you said, it's about becoming it. So you're changing that identity if you're going to look at your mindset to the identity of someone who doesn't need it. We're not fixing that old identity. We're moving to a new identity of
I knew
someone
I
that doesn't
didn't. Where,
need it.
where you eventually can start putting a track record together that looks more like you used to be. It's
Mhm.
more of kept promises one at a time. I mean, no
Like
one's
small,
going
consistent
to be.
actions that actually hold. Like even if it starts with
Yeah,
keeping a promise, going back to
yeah,
a promise that you made,
yeah,
something.
yeah. I believe that. And so, I guess the message, and eventually, I keep hoping that we're going to get on the other side and talk about the miracles on the other side, and how wonderful life is. I've got some great stories to tell about my experience and my journey, and how I regained my masculinity through a trip that I took, and I can't wait to share that with you guys. You know, but the whole thing about it is that you can be restored, but the identity collapse is very real. All right. So once you have that identity collapse, you really can believe that you are worthless and that everything that you ever worked for, all of your degrees, all of your accolades, all of your accolades, all of your certificates, all of your works, even your kids and your family, that you just wasted it all and that you're not worthy of it. But there is a way to get your identity back, and men need to build back that competence. They need to build back that it's not just about removing the substance. I'm not saying that you can keep drinking. I'm just saying I think the concentration for most programs is, oh, if you don't drink, you're going to get it all back. But it doesn't work that way. So, you got to do all these other things after you stop drinking. So it's about restoring your identity, your masculinity, and becoming the best person that you can again. But recovery is about becoming. It's not just about stopping. And you know, I think that you guys can do it. I mean, if you identify as being an alcoholic or an addict, I'd like you to reach out and send us a message and tell me what your experience has been. How have you dealt with it, and where are you at right now? So, but Dr. Hollis,
No, I mean, I think that gives us a lot of insight into it. And like you said, if anyone else is struggling or would like to share, certainly I hope that, reach out and tell us about it. Um, but I do think it falls back to what I'm even, learning and understanding every day. I learn something new too when it comes to this also. It's about the motivation behind it. What is the motivation behind the wanting to change, I think. Would you agree, Ricky? Like, we're not going to do the same thing over again because it's not got the same results. So I think it's finding that motivation to want to change. And then it's small, consistent steps, small little promises. And then they add up, to big things. And then, you build back that confidence and that trust in just yourself. And then people start to see it. And then it's just a whole new identity that starts to, I don't know, form and shape and mold
but,
around.
but I like the premise. It sounds really nice. It sounds sexy. It sounds complete. But sadly, that's not really how it works with alcoholics and addicts. I mean, like, it sounds like my mom talking, saying, these are all your rewards for, doing it. And how many times have we heard it? Yeah, we've heard what the rewards are. We know we've gone to the AA meetings, we've gone to the NA meetings, we've gone and we've heard the restored promises, and it it's like it's not enough until it's enough. I mean, I think a lot of guys have to just have enough to get to the point. So you can promise them candy canes and sugar canes, and Santa Claus, but it's not what you really think it is when it comes to the addict or the alcoholic. The addict or alcoholic has to just finally have enough. He's had enough and he wants something more. And he finds himself down in whatever dungeon that he's in. And then he cries out for help finally. And then yes, then he sees it. But it's not like you think, and it's not like most people think. You would think that it would be that easy. And if it was that easy, then anybody could just walk up to one and say, "Hey, guy, you can have all this." You know, but how often does that work?
Oh no, I don't think it's easy. I think it's again,
Yeah.
it goes back to mindset and when you've decided that enough's enough and you've got to change. Yeah, no, I never thought
But
that it
once you find yourself in that mind at the bottom there with a shovel, deciding whether you're going to dig a little deeper or not, that's where you know the crying out comes, and even the most agnostic person will cry out to God. But and so, anyways, my hope is for recovery for everyone. I'm here for you guys. Dr. Hollis is here for you. Uh, guys, remember the hills aren't flat. I want you to keep climbing. We're going to put our boots on one at a time and get up every day and just climb. So we'll see you guys in the next episode.